Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I am your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pine Hills Palace just west of Orlando, Florida. I am in the Extreme Studios with RDV from the Great Midwest joining me tonight in our continuing coverage of Miami Vice. Season 1 and RDV, I believe this is going to be correctly episode 2, not the syndication number, but what we have originally. It's Heart of
Yeah.
Darkness. It's got Ed O'Neill as an FBI undercover agent that might have gone
hmm
a little too deep before Lawrence Fishburne did later on in the decade in the early 90s. And I have to say, we had a very positive reception to a lot of people like me growing up as a teenager in the 80s and you as a teenager in the 90s, responding to the show here on our channel. So I want to say thank you to all the people out there retweeting and following tonight. What we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is, and we're experimenting sometimes with how we do our feeds, just so you know. We kind of go off the cuff. We never talk about it before, and we just give our reactions, talk about what we think works and didn't work. And
We're not professionals.
you know what? We're professional at what we do, so thank
Yeah.
you very much. And remember, if you respond, just be nice. So here's my initial take on the episode that I'm going to ask you for yours, and you can get us started here, RDV. And that's Ed O'Neill. I clearly remember this when it was cast. Obviously, he would go on and do other things. Married with Children comes to mind, and some others there too. This episode, I think, is a pretty good generic by the week sort of cop drama, if you want to call it. It takes a few episodes before you start to get in rhythm, like with the B episodes and all that. But all of a sudden, I just, Ed O'Neill, good on you, man. You did a good job in this role, and I liked it. I thought it was kind of fun. What's your initial take?
Well, this was the start of the formula, bringing in Switek and Zito into this, in the fold, having them be the backup. They're the Mark Wahlberg, Will Ferrell, the other guys.
The other guys, yes.
And it really works with this for them because they're able to work together with this, and it seems natural. It seems human, versus where it's just, any other show would be like, hey, there's the two guys and that's it. And then that's all they focus on. I'm Dragnet, the two guys. And then there might be another cop, and then that's it. This has a whole rotating cast, and the cast works out pretty good. Well, where right now Switek and Zito get enough screen time because it fits the plot, where Judy and I forgot what her name is. The other girl, is it Tracy?
Trudy and Judy, is that right? Or Trudy and Olivia, whatever.
Gina.
We're going to see more of
Gina. Trudy and Gina. Yes. So they're kind of background at the point in this episode, which is all right because as the show goes on, you're going to see the background characters get a little bit more screen time, especially with Gina becoming a possible love interest for Sonny because he's on a break with his wife, but he's on an on and off thing with Gina. Even Trudy gets a chance to shine, and then especially towards the end of the season, you get Zito and Switek, pretty much get their own little episode.
Yep.
And these guys are they're hilarious. Everyone's written so well in this, and everyone feels like they actually are friends. They're not just they get a paycheck and they're phoning it in. It feels like it actually have a good cast. There's a lot of chemistry between all of them, and just the whole entire episode. Even though it's like 45 minutes, it goes by real fast. If you're watching it, it's one of those shows you get captivated in. Especially when what you're getting with these shows is when it starts off with the main song, and you're going to see that it's a current theme throughout these episodes. They're gonna play the actual celebrity song. This one they're playing starts off with "She's a Beauty" by the Tubes, which is their big hit the previous year before, and it plays in going into this. So
if you got a still, why don't you go ahead and pull that up, and we'll start going through those in somewhat linear order.
Yeah. So this is the first shot we're getting here. We got this girl, played by Susie Amiz, I think her name is. Turns out to be later James Cameron wife later on.
His current wife?
Current wife. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the reason why I chose this still, because I picked this one, is because it's not because of the orientation of the shot. Obviously, you understand what it's kind of getting at here a little bit. It's a little sexual here. But by 80 standards with that, this was the de facto dancing and exercise sort of outfits that you would see to it. And there's still a sexiness to it. She's got the boombox in there and the pink and pastels. This is typical. And there's that late 70s orange carpet there on the ground.
I love
Very
this because
sleazy.
this start of this episode is a very inception. You don't know what's going on. You just know that this girl's working on this room. She's got her boombox. She's playing "She's a Beauty" by the Tubes, and I'm just like, okay, we're gonna go this way. And I'm like, okay, this is gonna start off. I don't know what's going on, and then she gets a knock at the door after she's sweating, and this girl, we watch her like she clearly looks underage. That's my first impression watching this. It's like, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. And then, hey, somebody asked about the air conditioner's out. She's, oh, thank you. And you're like, what am I watching here? And they said the tubes, she's a beauty, don't. And yeah. That's playing in the background. And of course, this is where it breaks the inception here. We get pulled away. They're on a porno set. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, that girl's like, what, 15, 16 years old?
Well, one of the things with porn that we've mentioned before on some movies or things, some anecdotally, is the fact that in the 70s going into the 80s, they were made kind of for the big screen rather than that. And then the advent of the VHS and you had your duels between the two major ones going into late 70s, that kind of transition to what porn could be. And people have often said that porn finds a way technology to move it forward because everyone wants to watch it. So you would have these setups, especially in magazines and all that, where they more fantasies. Young girls working out. She's got the wall AC unit in Florida when this is taking place. Those always fail. The guy comes up there and says, hey, I'll take a personal check. And they're alluding to the next scene where the guy's going to have sex with her. And the dude like wants to give her some candy, some cocaine to go in the back room to kind of loosen up.
Point out though, you're watching a show producing another thing. You know, it's like watching Friends. You pull back in and you're like, oh, that's just a set.
Yep.
I love this. You know, they do that show. So of course, we got Crockett and Tubbs. Crockett's like, I'm pretty sure that girl's underage. Yeah.
Like, everything you're thinking, he's saying.
Exactly. I love that. Of course, here comes the girl. She's like, I'm kind of nervous about the next scene. He's like, don't worry, baby. It's with me. Stick with me. He's like, fine. Have a little bump. You'll be the next Linda Lovelace. I was like, oh, they dropped the name.
Yeah.
While this is going on, of course, we have Switek and Zito. We're in the shaggin' wagon or the Roachmobile. Not yet. It's a white van, but later on, it becomes like an Orkin Man thing.
Well, this is where people, if we talk about, when we did our Gene Hackman tribute stream a while back, I mentioned one of the movies that we might have reviewed years ago and probably have to re-review is called The Conversation. It's one of the first films that actually used the idea of technology and being listened to by the government on there. And so I thought it was very interesting because that starts giving into you like paranoia and that kind of stuff from the government side. And so here, we're getting used to at this point of wagons being by holding government agents. If they wear black and everything else there too. So to me, I'm looking at this going, okay, this is just a precursor of that band that, hey, that's where they got that's the heartbeat. That's the logistics part of it. Right. Yeah.
But also, so basically this is also, we're getting more about learning more about Zito here. Zito is on the comms with Sonny and Tubbs. And then while the porno director is, he starts talking about something like a fact, and I loved how Zito's like, well, of course it happened this year. That was in the paper. He's like, and like Switek's like, how did you know that? Well, it's all the newspaper. It's like, so Zito's smart. I don't laugh. He's a lot smarter than people than they give him credit for. And same with Switek. We see that later on. So they go in there, they go in and they bust the guy, or at least they bust the rest of the crew, but only after the main guy director leaves. Because pretty much everyone flees the scene, and they allow the other guy, previous director here, flee with Sonny and Crockett to get him out of there. Because in order to meet the main boss, the bad guy who's behind all this, they gotta go through this guy. So immediately after this, we get going to this next scene here is the title screen. The music. This is right after the theme show plays. You get the nice synth wave, and I want to point also too that the tubes, the beauty, is a synth wave music. So everything they're using in this so far is going to be in the song, starting off with a synthwave song. It just fits the theme of the show.
Well, the title. Yeah. Sometimes they matter. And the question is what level. So Heart of Darkness, some people think is Joseph Conrad. And basically the biggest example of it is there was a movie that, we have not reviewed called Apocalypse Now, where the idea is that you get so deep into undercover, which is the darkness, that you lose your heart, kind of, and that's was one of these man like versus nature type ideas that Joseph Conrad and some others around the turn of the century, the 1900s, would write. To build a fires, or another classic one, or something about don't fuck with nature because you lose. And here the whole idea is that, as we'll find out with Ed O'Neill's character, is he too far under? And that's kind of the whole idea of it. As a kid, you go, Heart of Darkness, hey, that sounds cool. You don't know what it means, right? Because you're listening, like you say, to the synthwave music, and this was filmed in July of '84. Very hot year, if I recall, and all that. Prince was really hot at the time, no pun intended there, remember? I just love these establishing kind of shots, because I'm telling you, that's what the sky looks like here in Florida in the summer, especially in July. The clouds start building around noontime. You get ready for those afternoon storms.
Yeah, so they're trying to get a hold of Artie Lawson. In order to talk to Artie Lawson, they have to talk to that other porno director there. So eventually, they get to meet Artie Lawson, but only after Penny is sprung because she's brought in because she's behind drug stuff. So they arrest her too. She's sprung by Artie Lawson. Turns out to be Artie Lawson is that's Ed O'Neill.
Yeah, could you tell that from his voice and the fact they didn't show his face when they were driving around?
He has a distinct voice. Whenever I hear Ed O'Neill, it's like that's Al Bundy. You can't younger Al Bundy. Not as exaggerating in his voice, but so after that, so this is so Judy's when it comes to tell us Crockett, and Crockett's kind of like, okay, I know this guy. He's like, he's a nice guy. I've met his wife and stuff. So they have to go and try and get a hold of him. But first, they're setting up another thing in the show right now. It's gonna be a recurrence theme. I love this, and that's why I included this still. We're going with the TV station with the pawn store. So this is where they can record people coming in and arrest them. And this becomes Zito and Switek's, their main gig. And it's a recurring thing throughout the season. So I love this scene here too, because it's just basically four guys bonding together, having fun. And I love us. Zito's like goes Tubbs. He's like, hey, it's like I think we're gonna show up in New York. He's like, how about you raise that counter? He's like, a little bit taller. That way don't come across here and strangle you in your throat. And also, why don't you get a platform so you actually seem intimidating behind the counter? Like Tubbs is going off on him.
Well, one of the more interesting jokes in the early '80s was by a guy that he was on Johnny Carson, and he was a comedian, and he made like he was going to have a wrestling match. And I don't know if you know all this kind of stuff, but he made fun of Carson by like doing his own filling in for him, and like sitting like 8 feet tall up on his desk or whatever. Yeah. And it was just amazing, because the stuff that the New Yorker tells him, it's like, well, we have to think about this kind of stuff. And Tubbs or Crockett earlier in the episode, or some point in this episode, says, hey man, you got to relax. This is Miami. We do things differently down here. It's a vibe. You can't go like you do in New York. And at the time, again, back in the '80s, there was a lot of different cultures coming, not just to South Florida, but Central Florida, some places in North Florida. But you did not have this mass exodus of people from the '80s coming down to retire until much later, like in the mid to late 90s.
As you watch this show, they actually talk about there's the Haitians are coming in. You have the Colombians. There's always the Colombians coming in. And Cuba. It's just, the Cubans, those two. And it was just a nice melting pot, stuff. And like I said, it wasn't talking about anything like you'd see today, Miami stuff. It was actually everyone back then. A lot of people liked the party. That was it. There wasn't really much any bad guys, other than basically the drug lords. People are shipping this drugs.
Miami was kind of like a laid back kind of quiet retirement.
It became spring break.
You had all the immigrants coming in. Yes.
Yeah. It became one giant in the 80s with MTV, became spring break all the way into like the mid 90s before they said no more MTV spring break, because people the kids ended up just trashing the hotels. Now, the thing is though, that a lot of I've read is a lot of people who didn't mind that because they got so much money for that. That's how they kept their business afloat.
Sure.
And then the city says, well, we can't do anymore. It's not safe and stuff. And so it pissed off a lot of people with businesses, because there's a few that didn't like it. The majority of the ones that had the hotels, the bars down there, they loved it because they made bucks. They made mega bucks.
Well, the high end ones you could do that with
Oh,
too at all the
yeah.
classic hotels. It's the cheap ones
So
for all the college kids. That was the whole theme in the
because
'80s, and there's a whole subculture of movies made about spring break in the '80s down
and
here in Florida.
because other people were afraid about having underage drinking and stuff, and see back then people knew kids were gonna get beer, whether from the parents or from the other friends' parents. Kids were gonna get it. You know, they weren't like, oh my gosh, we have the police state everything. You know, like I said, a lot of people were more responsible back then. And I said the kids were smoking at age 11 in the freaking from the 60s and 70s and 80s. You know,
And drinking,
yeah,
like
yeah.
they always
And
do.
you some people it was okay. You had a beer if you're like, especially like if you're older age. Obviously, if you're like older teens, your parents would have a beer with you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they trusted you. A lot of kids were responsible. Now the ones that spiraled out are the ones who basically came from broken homes. You know.
It was basically when somebody jumped off a balcony
But-
and missed the pool that
but-
you hear it on the news.
Yeah, yeah, it's like,
I mean,
oh, I'm
most
gonna
people
jump
get real.
off, bro. I'm gonna jump off the roof into the pool. Like totally misses the pool, hits the concrete. Oh, or they clip it. Yeah.
Now I don't know which still is next, but there's
The next one
coming up
we're gonna
that-
they meet
ahead.
with Artie at O'Neill, and they're gonna go meet his boss at the nice restaurants.
Well, there's one before all this that oh gosh, maybe it's after this. It's the one where they're standing in the hotel when Penny's fallen dead, or in the
I did not have that still. I didn't. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, basically what they're doing is they find out that Penny's been released. She's dead. And so they're like, man, we got to catch it. And one of the things here that is kind of interesting because it made me double check it is that Tubbs, we see him being very, very reactionary. Like he's from New York. He's like really pissed off that these FBI guys are trying to get the information.
Yeah.
Or basically like, well, screw you. You come back when you let us know when you give us our folder and then we'll exchange it. Right.
Yeah.
So they meet Ed O'Neill. And here's why I picked this still.
Yeah,
Look
they
at
don't
that
know that Penny's dead
mesh
yet.
shirt. We already have the wife beater. Now we have the mesh. Look at that. This is so close to a Canadian tuxedo out in the wilds. I had to include it for people who have no idea what that is. People still wore mesh occasionally, and you would crop it in half or whatever like that, and then you're playing for the other team, as they would say back in the day. But look at that. Yeah. Who the hell would wear it? Would you wear a mesh like that, sir?
Matrix, I'm coming for you.
No, exactly, right? Exactly. Right. Would you wear that?
No. No people who wear that were the alternative guys or the gay guys. Later on, you find out, Hardy Boys started wearing that. Jeff Hardy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
But you
don't see Krupp on TV anymore.
So at this point, they're meeting with Artie and his boss, the guy's in charge of the whole thing. They're trying to get introduction, lead him in. They're interrupted by because he's basically the second-hand man, right-hand man to this big boss guy, and he has to go deal with somebody because somebody's late on their payment. You get the briefcase. Like, I'm sorry. I'm late. He's like, it's always your fault. Don't worry. He hits him with the briefcase. And they're like, what the heck? So they're like, Ed O'Neill's going psychopath. And then after
because here's the thing, they're going undercover. They've only been there a week. They've met him, so you got to have something that does two things.
He's very tense. You come across him,
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. This is an example of him possibly descending to the depths of madness that he can't recover from, because he's basically, a guy that they're watching, knowing that he's supposed to be undercover, but he doesn't know at this point yet if that's the case. And with him beating the shit out of the guy, and then when he turns around, he says to him, "Don't you ever interfere." You're like, Give me more of this Ed O'Neill rather than
Ed O'Neill yelling at Sonny Crockett because Sonny said, "Hey, take it easy," and he's like, "Yeah, don't."
And that's a leather briefcase, sir. And he beats the shit out of him with it. I love it.
Also, you said at this point, we already know going into this that Ed O'Neill's character has been missing for 3 weeks. They set up a hotel room for him, but he didn't use it. He's been on the lam. So I don't. Right. So
off the grid.
See him snap off like this. You're like, what the heck? So of course, after this, they go back to the Miami-Dade police station. We get to see, this is another class thing you're going to see here. You're going to see him with a cigarette. Obviously, we're going to have Crockett he's going to have his muscle shirts on, tank tops on, with his holster on, and you're in his nice white pants,
Yep.
And you're going to see that throughout the series.
That hair is perfect. That's Michael Douglas level of hair.
Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah, Michael Douglas, Kirk Douglas.
Yeah.
All that stuff. And so he gets a phone call, and this is where he learns that Penny's dead.
Yeah.
That she died, OD'd. So, and he's also trying to get a hold of, they meet with his Ed O'Neill's wife after this, and just anything they can to try to get him to come back in, because they need her to convince Ed to come back because they think he's too far
she's the one
gone.
that says, "Oh no, he tried to come in, but the FBI agent said no, you stay out there."
Yeah, they left him out to dry.
That we'll see here with Miami Vice as the show goes on.
Yeah. So as we get to the next still here,
this is the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, this is where, they're talking and they're figuring out they need to come in, they need to bring him in because at this point Ed O'Neill's gone off the deep end.
Well, one of the things I liked about the shot, if when you guys watch it, you'll start to see this a lot more in Miami Vice. Is I've always said you can make the location you're in part of the character.
Yes,
you've got lighting and stuff.
The ocean behind them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you see the scene set up, if you see the cop way there in the background underneath their boss's chin there, this goes on for a couple of seconds before here, where they're walking into mid frame or whatever you would call this, where you see it go from right to left as they're walking from left to right and get centered here, and you see this vast sweeping going over Biscayne Bay or whatever this is here, and the pool and all that. So you know this is an expensive place. So what I loved about the show that was to me so cutting edge is you get to see high-end residential real estate that you go, yeah, I saw Scarface and that was cool, but that's a movie. In television, you almost never saw something like this where you're filming it like the middle of the day. This was, I think, again, filmed in July. So it's hot out, clouds are building, and they're catching it all. So it's just nice how they establish that in the background, and this is a very upscale place, which is this hideout here, and something bad happened. It's just that's how you shoot a shot. This reminds me of a movie that most people hated, and I kind of liked it. At least I thought it was different at the time. But Ang Lee in 2003 with the Hulk, there's a real famous shot of Jennifer Connelly walking from one side to another in widescreen while everything's going through San Francisco Bay Harbor. And I thought, I don't know what the name of this type of shot's called, but you will see this a lot here in the show.
Yep. I'm trying to remember what the main lieutenant's name is in here.
Is it Castillo?
I think it might be Castillo.
Castillo, I think is how you pronounce Castillo. Yeah. Whatever. He's not really made his presence known.
Yeah.
Is the way I look at that.
Is it? It's not Costco. Lester. That's anyway though. Their boss here, pretty much after Tubbs kind of leaves, he chews out him and basically, and Crockett get into an argument, and he basically chews him out. And you're gonna see after this guy, this main the lieutenant leaves, and we get James Edward Olmos. It's a totally different relationship, more of a mutual respect. This guy, he hands out stuff and doesn't want talk back whatsoever. James Edward Olmos allows it for a little bit, but he doesn't blow off the handle like this guy does. This guy is like you're watching NYPD Blue. Or whatever that show was on ABC. I think that's what it was.
There's so many.
Where the fat cop is like yelling, he's like, "Yo, how dare you?" It's like, the classic thing where you get like with all the Beverly Hills yelling, the cop yelling, getting yelled at. This was they went with this, but then they quickly went away with it after they said, because they realized, no, that's too cliche. Everybody does that. Let's do a different direction, and it really helped them stand out. So after this, they're told they ultimately is that either we go after the guy tonight, or we're arresting Artie, we're pulling him out, it's so they go, and eventually they go to meet with Artie and they bring him in. Hey, dude, we need you to. Are you far gone? He's like, what do you mean I'm far gone? He's like, I have all this evidence up to my eyeballs. They arrest this guy, arrest Kovacs, or whatever his name is. These guys, and he's like, I'll do it, but it's like, but on my terms. I know this guy's gonna rot 6 feet under, and he's like, so Tubbs kind of yells back at him a little bit. Says like, hey, dude, it's like, you got to understand where we're coming from. You've been 3 weeks. You were gone. Nobody knew who you were. You're not contacting your bosses. Your wife's concerned about you. She's afraid, you're not gonna come back. And just like, and you have all the evidence. So how about we do it tonight? How about we arrest him and get it's over with? Arrest the bad guy. And he's talking about how. Yeah, and he's like, I've seen, and they tell him about Penny. He's like, wait, because after he's all angry at this, he turns around and you see him like so like shocked. He's like, wait, Penny's like, she's like, oh, she's like, she's such a kid, It's like, I had no idea to do it, and nothing. He said, I had nothing to do with this, So he agrees with them to go meet him at nighttime. They're gonna go at the docks, and they're gonna go after the bad guy. So they all get in the car.
Well, hold on for a second on this still, because there's a couple things I wanted to mention on it.
Yeah.
All right. So again, I think this is a great shot that you selected here. There's a couple of things I just want to mention.
Yeah.
One, similar type of shot. You see the background, the construction, the water, and all that stuff through two. They're up high. You don't see Crockett's face. You just see the side of it. So your eyes immediately kind of go in the middle, but to the right, because that's kind of how you read left to right, up top to bottom. So you see Tubbs looking over at him, and I love the fact that Tubbs is literally in the middle of him, because one thing sometimes that when you have what I guess you call like a two camera shot, like over the shoulder, this kind of is where the camera would go back and forth. This somebody would say something that cuts the other person. Here you have all three people in it, and you can watch Tubbs in the middle. His eyes go back and forth. There's watching, and two more quick things. One, the range that Ed O'Neill has in this particular scene, if you're doubting his ability to act because he's a Modern Family, he's a goof or whatever, this sold it to me, because he delivers it right. Yeah. And it's a bit of a joke here. Tubbs, these guys are all good looking men, but look at Tubbs. You unbutton the top button when you're being social, like when you get off work and you loosen your tie. When you don't wear a tie, you unbutton the second button on your dress shirt. And then when you're a man and have chest hair and wear medallions, you unbutton 3.
Yep.
That's dressing for the 80s. Thank you, Tubbs.
Yes.
Anyway, you know, I want to be a fashionista sometimes. I like to play it.
Sure, yeah. So they decide, we get a little brief scene after this where they go back to Sonny's pretty much his boat, and his Buddy Holly collection has been destroyed by Elvis. So he's pissed about that. He threatens to throw the blanket over. He's like, "See this, Tubbs? This is Elvis's favorite blanket. It'd be a shame if I threw it over into the ocean." And you see the alligator roars at him. He's like, "Yeah, shut up." It's like,
I don't know if I like the Elvis thing or not. I mean, I pop because it's a gator and it's realistic, but
so
I don't know.
The whole Elvis Gatorade thing. Not Gatorade, but Gator thing. It does help out later on this for brief moments of fun, because when people try to break into his thing, they get confronted by the gator. It scares the shit out of them. And so they use that to their advantage.
Yep.
Because even Tubbs is like, I'm not. Gators, yeah. I love this because it's a continuing theme too. Tubbs is like, I ain't going anywhere near that gator. You stay on your side, I'll stay on my side of the boat. That's literally how Tubbs sits on the. So the Tubbs gets wired up because they're gonna go undercover. And they go to meet with Artie, and they meet Kovacs, and they're all in the limo. They're driving there, and we get the scene while they're driving. And I don't know if you've been around, if this is still there, Pumpernicks.
You know, I'm guessing no, but it's hard to say. It depends on where in Miami they had it, because they had a big building boom, mostly because of the show in the 90s, and some money flowing in there too. So I think a lot of these places aren't there. But it's interesting because there's a lot of websites that go online and say, okay, let's go look at where they filmed it and see if the places are still there.
Look at this though. I love this because the sign is, and this is a really real restaurant too, and it shows you how run down this restaurant. They even replaced the light bulbs.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
That's your old school neon, sir.
Yes.
So if you look at Restaurant Sandwich Shop here in Central Florida, we had a real famous place by the Colonial Plaza Mall that no longer exists called Ronnie's. It's where everybody would go. It was a diner and a bistro. And on Orange Blossom Trail 441, which there's a very famous mall called the Florida Mall, and the 441's where all the strip clubs used to be, because they're not anymore.
Yep.
All of them had signs that looked like this and this kind of neon. So
individual bulbs in the signs, where now it's just a panel and it has a light, LED lights underneath behind it.
And it glows differently. The type of lighting for LEDs is not the same as the old school stuff. It really is.
Yeah, these were individual like light bulbs screwed in.
Yeah. So that looked like a place you'd go check out.
Pumpernicks, man. Restaurant and sandwich shop. I mean, it's at your corner thing. It's like your local
it's probably a deli. It's probably ethnic oriented, so it probably had good food.
Probably, most likely then. Yeah. So as they're driving, you go past the restaurant thing, and then we finally get down to the docks here, and I don't have a slide for the docks because it's Kovacs tells and it's a beautiful shot, because this is what Michael Mann does when people are in a limo. You have the bad guys on one side, the good guys on this side.
Right.
And because Artie told his boss that Sonny and Crockett are cops, they're Miami Vice, blows their cover.
The reason why that happened is because Tubbs, when he was undercover, when we saw Switek back there at the place where they had all the electronics or whatever, it was interesting because the one guy makes a comment who's working on the what's called the breadboard there that has the analog devices, the capacitors and resistors and such on it.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, nobody has an appreciation for microelectronics anymore.
And he's also a recurring character too, which I love about. He's not the throwaway character. Well, everyone you see on the show is pretty much a recurring character in other roles in the background.
Well, the thing is for whatever reason, they quickly showed, and I didn't make this connection to what happens here, which was the giveaway, which I didn't know. It would add a little attention to it. Is it wasn't him that was the guy doing the normal setting you up with the equipment. It was just some jabroni they had to pull in at the last minute. So Tubbs is there, and it catches a stray signal. There was used to be with metallic fillings that you would have in there
back in the radio
that you pick up radio signals. And so there's this kind of idea that it happens here because it's playing like some music or whatever and all that. And that's where he goes, yeah, they're cops. So they're going to go whack him here. And you're looking at Ed O'Neill going,
and
whack him, Ed O'Neill.
Ed O'Neill, he tells him, and Ed O'Neill's got his little Uzi. I love about this. Everyone else has the freaking Uzis in the show, or machine guns, or some machine guns, or even they have the rifles too, the M16s, or AR-10s.
They're pals.
Yes. Everyone has full burst. Nobody has because they're criminals, so they're going to have the full auto fire instead of having the individual trigger, which is semi-automatic. So he's told to kill them, but he decided at the last minute, he can't do it, and there's a big old fight scene out there, and then they end up getting killing the main bad guy, and so at the end of this, they all basically Ed O'Neill says like, thank you guys, hey, it's like, I'm gonna go see my wife, Carrie's like, yeah, first I gotta go do a debriefing. This cuts back later on after this. They get to a bar where we have everybody from the whole entire show. Is pretty much, you got the lieutenant, you got Switek, you got Zito, Tubbs and Sonny Crockett, and Judy and Gina. They're all there. They're winding down, having a beer and stuff. And Tubbs is holding basically a copy and identification of Ed O'Neill's card, his FBI card, his badge, thing. And the lieutenant comes up to him. He's like, "Hey, just got word, a phone call during the middle of the debriefing, and Artie, he went out called his wife, for a minute, and then he went to the bathroom, hung himself."
Yeah, so it was too much for him.
And this is also a common theme too, though. You're gonna come across where people from Crockett knows all these people. Everyone that shows on that show, he'll have friends from his past, from when he was in the war and stuff, and just people that Crockett's really emotionally attached to, and then they'll also deal with Tubbs. Tubbs will have a girl he's infatuated with, and he has to, it's just a lot of heartbreak, and it's real because that's what it is. There are people who get involved with the bad things, but then being the cops, they get involved with bad people and people who are in bad situations. They try to save everyone they can, but they can't.
There's this old expression that sometimes actually got brought up occasionally back in the day about whether it's business circles or social, and again, this isn't necessarily my particular idea, but they say, oh, you're going to turn out not how good you're going to be because you got lucky or you worked hard or you practice a certain religion or your parents were rich. It's the three people that are really, really close to you, what level they're on, you're going to turn out like them. So if you're hanging around three people that are really good people, you'll turn out to be a good person. If you're hanging around three party animals, you're going to turn into a party animal. And that's the thing about the show, is that it could have just easily ended on that with Ed O'Neill at the last second, getting ready to shoot and all that. But they always add sometimes in these shows a little bit of that to kind of keep you off a little bit, which I liked, because to me, you had this great divergence in the 80s of the leftover 70s, well-written kind of, and I've talked about this briefly with some 70s movies that we've done, the themes of it, that the 70s were pretty grim and pretty realistic. And in the 80s, once we kind of got out of recession and Reagan got elected, there was this idea back with the middle class having a bit more money of just going out and having fun and partying and stuff. And this is what we see a lot in the 80s. And the angst was, Tom Cruise in Risky Business banging a high-end chick and whether or not he could get into Princeton. I mean, that's first world white boy problems, right? So, yeah, but here, this show was not like Remington Steele, these other ones that were just cutesy and fun, like Alf. They weren't. And that's what I liked about the show. It's pretty gritty, and it feels real. You said at the beginning, they look like real people. Ed O'Neill looks real. Yeah. These guys look real. They don't look superhuman. Miami looks real. It's awesome.
I want to point out that the writer for this show, who's basically the executive story editor for the whole first season and second season, was Daniel Pyne, using his pseudonym A.J. Edison.
Okay.
He only wrote like a few episodes. This is he wrote Heart of Darkness. Then the other ones he did Little Prince, Rites of Passage, Prodigal Son, Definitely Miami, Yankee Dollar, Trust Fund Pirates. And this is a guy who wrote the script for The Sum of All Fears, Doc Hollywood, The Manchurian Candidate.
Really? The old Manchurian Candidate?
Yeah.
Holy crap. Wow.
He also wrote episodes of the series Matt Houston, The Equalizer, The Marshal, which he created with John Mankiewicz, and Alcatraz.
Mm-hmm.
And he also worked on Bosch.
Oh.
Yeah.
You've recommended Bosch to me, which I've done a few seasons,
yes.
and that's been pretty solid.
Yeah, so not only that, we got that, we also have the director for this, which is John Llewellyn Moxey.
John Moxley?
Yeah, John Moxley, right?
Is he a death writer?
This is John Moxey, not Moxley.
I said death writer. Get it?
Yeah. I'm deaf from hearing that joke. This is the guy who worked on, he directed TVC NYPD, Judd for Defense in 1968. Then he went to The Name of the Game. And a year later, Hawaii Five-0.
That's a popular show. Hawaii Five-0. People love that.
My Mission Impossible.
The original
7 episodes
show?
of that. Mannix, 10 episodes. He worked on 3 episodes of Kung Fu.
Nice.
Yep. Then he went into Magnum PI, and then Murder, She Wrote.
Murder, She Wrote. There you go.
I know, right? Yeah, like I said, he also worked on The Avengers and The Saint before this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So this guy is. Here's the thing: you're getting good writers, you're getting a good director. So of course, this whole entire show, you're gonna have a lot of great writing, a lot of great directing. They do change directors per episode, but sometimes you get recurring directors sometimes, which is nice about this. But everyone that's in this show, pretty much, whether behind the scenes making it, producing stuff, or on the show, everyone really puts their A game into this, and it really shows throughout this. I've watched shows like NYPD Blue, Law and Order, and they're stiff, they're wooden. Yeah, and they're not, or like there are some good shows like The Rookie, but they're not deep like this. This was like watching Thief as a TV show.
Yes,
Michael Mann puts it here, and every episode is a moral story to this. Someone's gonna die, or that gets close, they know, or someone might have a happy ending, but there's always
there's like a pound of flesh that gets delivered somehow, some way.
Yeah. So as you go out through this series, you're gonna come across other guest characters in here too. We even get Glenn Fry, Smuggler's Run episode. I think it's like season 2, and it's just fun throughout this. Not only you're watching the cool car chases, the boat chases, foot chases, you're also getting the music from the 80s. So if you're a fan of the 80s and you've never watched Miami Vice, this is the 80s all in one show.
Yeah, one of the things that I was going to point out with the music, you mentioned a few of the songs. The very last song that's playing in the bar, I'm listening to it and going, I know what that is.
Yeah.
And it's George Benson, and it's Masquerade, which is, a really popular song of his. And George Benson's just a phenomenal guitarist. He's like, I think around 80 years old right now. He's still alive. But the 80s was such an interesting musical time. A lot of times people think 70s probably pop culture-wise writing and music was the best, like for movies and television. And it's hard to argue with that. But I think the funnest might have been the 80s because you still had a lot of really good stuff. And it really started getting watered down, I think, in the 80s with a lot of the goofy shows and all that. And then how thin things got in the 90s.
Oh,
I'm telling you, to hear George Benson at the end, Masquerade, singing about what, we talked about with the opening bit, Heart of Darkness, what it means, how Ed O'Neill's characters like it, Apocalypse Now. Now you've got George Benson, Masquerade, which is like what Ed O'Neill's character had to portray on, and what Sonny said, hey man, I know, I've been there for 10 years, blah, blah, blah. And that's when they're, in his condo basically saying, yeah, we're going to go and get him tonight. You're like, okay, now we're going into the third act. Here's the big action sequence. Yeah. And then it seems like it's good. He helps them out, but then he can't handle it at the end. It is kind of not, it's kind of cynical and in a very adult, mature sort of way, which again, I think as the 80s would grow on, you'd get less and less of this. So I really, really did like that.
So this is also the director also did, I forgot to mention this. He, for those who didn't know, we reviewed Kolchak the Night Stalker including the 2 TV movies that along with the series.
Yes.
And this is the guy who wrote and directed or I don't know if he wrote it, but I know he directed the Night Stalker TV movie with the vampire.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I think it's a vampire one. I get confused. There's one with a vampire, and the other one is with like a doctor on underground San Francisco, where he basically what he wants
Seattle.
Seattle was, yeah,
Seattle Underground.
But I can't recall at the moment. But yeah, so like I said, very fun episode, kind of short. I watched this all last year. I'm on the 3rd season right now, in the middle of that. So as I watch, it's like it takes me a couple minutes. I'm like, oh, okay, now I know exactly what's going on in this show, this episode. And it comes right back to me, instantly, and it's still enjoyable watch. Like I said, you're gonna see a lot of celebrities in here pop in. Like a lot of people don't know that the girl in the beginning, Penny, is James Cameron's current wife. You wouldn't know that unless you looked it up, And I looked it up last year, and I was like, because I always do whenever I watch a show or movie, I look at the IMDb cast. Even the people that are like, hey, who's this other person? Like, that's not a main character or a side character. I want to know who they are, because a lot of times, if they're older, they've appeared in a lot more things I may have watched and just remember them being in there because they're a side character.
Right. I know that tomorrow night, Pixel, the young 20-something gentleman here on the Extreme Movie Show, also from Central Florida, he and I are going to be continuing our Columbo television review, and we're on season 4, episode 3, I believe it is. And one of the more recent episodes that we reviewed, there's this in episode 2, that the Dick Van Dyke episode, he has an assistant that's really young and really attractive, and nothing really happens between them. I go, man, she looks familiar. She looks like a classic 70s lady. Looked her up, and she was she played the lead in the TV show in the 70s, before, I think right at the same time or even before Wonder Woman. And the show was called like ISIS, or The Secrets of ISIS, or something, or whatever. And as a kid, and in the 80s, you watched, and 70s, you watched more Saturday morning cartoons, right? And you would see shows like this, and the first TV show that had Spider-Man in it and everything else there too. So I just thought it was interesting, because you're right. Sometimes these people that play these bit roles go on to do other things. And the 80s were interesting because that's when they started to reboot stuff like Mission Impossible. But then people that acted when they were in television started getting really more mainstream in the 50s and 60s. You could see a show being relaunched or rebooted, like Leave It to Beaver, or like Kung Fu, a great show in the early 70s that you would see later on. And again, they would use that star of the week stuff. Kurt Russell was on a ton of them and all that. And he became a major star. So yeah, it just... This show is still finding its legs, and I think some of the stuff that we talked about that you've mentioned as well, we're going to see a lot more of them. Once season 2 hits, Miami Vice is going to be rolling it like 5th gear with what they are and everything too, in my opinion.
So I remember this is also this was the episode that had the goof where the hubcaps fly off and then they're back on. Yeah,
that's editing, right? I mean, it happens.
There's little things you're gonna notice as you watch this, and I always love that, where Crockett's arms are supposedly up, but they were down before, or now they're vice versa. And it's like somebody forgot when they're editing it. Oh crap!
Well, that's like the 70s equivalent of the car being driven off the side of a cliff and it explodes before it hits anything at the bottom. You just kind of let it
goes out, instantly explodes. Yeah, it's like
it turns over, boom, it explodes, then it hits. Yeah.
Oh, we had a car bomb before it went off. Yeah. So I always assume there's a car bomb on there before it hits the ground and explodes.
Yeah. So coming up, we have, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, live, season 4, episode 3 of Columbo. Then you and I are live
on Sunday
night, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Well, yeah, so we're live on Tuesdays too as well. So Tuesday, I don't know what we're doing, but Wednesday night is going to be Columbo, and then next Sunday next Miami Vice.
Correct. So Tuesdays typically movies and all that. You and I typically don't do TV shows, but we wanted to get Miami Vice in, and so I was pleased by his reaction to it. It's a fun show. I have not watched this show in probably 30 years. I started watching it when it came out on DVD, and I got it on Blu-ray, and I'm watching on that. Boy, it looks spectacular.
Is your wife watching with you, or she watch by herself?
Here's the thing. I'll put something on, and it just depends. Maybe it depends on the song or what's going on with it. Like Columbo, she won't really watch. But Miami Vice, sometimes the music, or if it's a club scene, she'll be like, oh, I remember this or whatever. Or like X-Files, or something else. It just depends. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
I like whenever they show like the bathroom like products. You go in there and do stuff, whatever. It's like, hey, remember this? The 80s. Yeah, I remember that. They don't make that anymore.
I know, right?
Detergents, or the cream, whatever, shaving cream.
Well, remember Gatorade used to come in a bottle, and I saw it on an earlier episode of Columbo or something in a grocery store, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how they used to package
a glass bottle. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all that stuff there too. Anything else you need to plug, RDV?
No, that's about it for the night, though. If you guys haven't done so, please click like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you like this, you want more of this, leave a comment down below at the end of this episode. Pretty much, we say here, it helps push this on the algorithm, so it gets shared out more. We do stream this through the vertical live stream on your phone, but you can also watch it on the normal view. So if you're watching and you're turning on the wrong thing, so it's in both formats for your convenience. Mainly because the vertical streams are getting pushed now by YouTube. YouTube does not push the normal ones. But for the most part, that's about it. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Good night, pal.
I'm not your pal, buddy.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.